not in the survey.
I'm asking what you said.
Huh?
What did you say about the customer safety? That's what I'm
I
asking.
said there is no customer demand for parking as part of the
Oh,
survey.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I wouldn't even know how to do such a thing. I mean, it's beyond my pay, probably for an engineer. What I did was I took another, so this is looking at the change design parking from one point of view on demand. Then I took another look from the zoning point of view, and this is what was distributed to you at the end of last meeting by Greg. It's dated May 28. It says, I checked with Greg, he told me, we sent him 9 copies for distribution to the council, and he distributed at the end of the last work session 2 weeks ago. I was looking from a zoning point of view. I divided it into 2 tables. The first table, table A, is looking only into properties that came in front of the board, zoning board, board of adjustment, received approval, received allocation of parking in the municipal parking, and those projects were built. They exist, they're standing, so is the allocation. The total ends up 87 spaces, as table A shows. Then I took the other properties that were in the definition of shady side in the settlement agreement and ordinance 1061, and I listed them, and I used the zoning criteria of 2 cars per residential unit and 1 car for 200 square feet of retail commercial, and this came to the total here on table B came to 62, and when you add the 87 from that were in front of the board and the 62, it's 149, and this is exactly the number of cars, the number of spaces that were built in the north parking lot and the south parking lot. So from the zoning point of view, all the parking spaces really are spoken for. I also attached some, there are attachments, 2 of them, number 1 and number 3, are actual resolutions that of the board, giving the approval, and when it came to parking, they say they rely on settlement agreement, ordinance 1061, and then resolution R185. If one of you did not receive this, do you have? Everybody have it? I have it a few more copies, just in case. You all have it. I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Does anyone else wish to be heard? Dennis?
Dennis Gallagher, 18 Councilman Dell and I encountered each other this morning, and we had a little discussion. I asked what's going on with any progress on having the proceedings on top. And basically, apparently nothing's going on.
So I didn't get that wrong.
Is there anything being done about getting our proceedings on television?
Greg's looked into it. As of right now, we haven't decided to do it, but I think we mentioned at the previous meeting that believe we're probably all in favor of it, so it's just a matter of finding, you know, I believe he's dealing with the cable company and looking into it, so.
How long does President, the question, the town?
I'll answer after your 5 minutes are up.
Could the state board, have government any news on that situation?
Nothing since the last time. I know he's in rehab, and from what I hear,
So it's just a long time. It's been long.
it's no year so far.
Thank you.
Anyone else wish to be heard? Tommy?
Mayor, members of the council, I'm going to speak about Veterans Field and exactly where we are and who put us there specifically. Mayor, I'm sure in your seat you've done some study and you may have come to find that no mayor in your seat has ever requested, or supported the acquisition and the implementation of Green Acres for this community. Unfortunately, that was done with an application that was submitted in 2001 by a council that was embarrassed because of the potential over-expenditure of $4 million. Pure and simple. It wasn't to save the park. It wasn't to enhance our children's needs at Veterans Field. It was to save their own backside publicly. If you recall, we had a referendum passed by the Edgewater public by 80 votes, calling for 3 cents on the dollar for the proceeds to be earmarked for open space, so long not to exceed $2.3 million. And that was to expire at the expiration of that debt payment. Well, unfortunately, and that 2.3 was to cover land acquisition plus improvements to the Richmond Marina. Unfortunately, they went up against an adverse seller, and time went on, and the money and the requests went up. It finally went to around 4.2, and the application was ultimately denied eminent domain because of the parameters didn't meet from DEP. You got the $2 million monetary acquisition from Burton Community Open Space, and then subsequent, that application was resubmitted for land improvements. So the total fee comes to around 6.4 million. So when I say $4 million overrun, it's correct. And that can be verified by your own auditor. But here's the question. The initial approval of acquiring the marina comes from the Edgewater public. Where was the approval for Green Acres granted as mayor and council? Where was it from the public? But they gave away our crowning jewel? We just went through years and years of acquiring a recreation facility. It opened up in 1999. It cost roughly $3 million. That is now under the jurisdiction of the state because of negligence of the so-called powers that be, people that knew better than the present city mayor at that time. Where is it the powers that be to put, of all properties, there was 2. One was 1167 River Road, which is the American Legion. The American Legion. That was erected during 59, 60. No taxpayer dollars spent, all through the hard work of the Legionnaires that went door to door, street by street with the papers. That is now under the jurisdiction of the state of New Jersey, DEP, and of all the concern that you folks have of the little guy not playing Little League ball. Why wasn't the Little League protected and subdivided as well as the aforementioned properties by the so-called powers that be? Mary Hogan, Valerie Bardinas, Nita Rose, and I guess Lois Line. Where were they? If their concern was the kids and the betterment of our children, they were looking to cover their own backsides, pure and simple. Here's another thing. Why didn't they subdivide the property? Even if, I'm against green acres, but they took it. Why didn't they protect our properties with a simple subdivision? The initial 2001 application set the tone for the walkway. The secondary application that was submitted by Valerie Bardinas and others was in '06 for the $600,000. That guaranteed the implementation of the walkway. Mary had to be happy as a pig in whatever. She's a trustee. She did such a good job with the walkway. She's a trustee on the Hudson County Conservation. She was made a trustee. Where is, and it set the tone for two things. After this cleanup is done, how is our facilities going to be affected by outside influence? Can any time that they're having, just come in and say, Mr. Mayor, your schedule is out of whack. I want time. My taxpayers want to buy that. And the second thing is, it's at the two focal points to attack the residents of Admiral's Ward. You have the walkway at two focal points, and you got Hogan on the Conservation Conservancy that's right there behind the walkway.
Tommy, your time is up.
Thank you.
Anyone else wish to be heard? Valerie?
Valerie Bardinas, 16 Hudson Terrace. Well, it's election season and the crazies are coming out. In 2001, I will tell you who was on. Ryan Christensen was mayor, Democrat. Nancy Merce was a councilwoman, Democrat. Bob Corcoran was a councilman, Democrat. Louis Besednik was a councilman, Democrat. Mary Hogan, Nita Rose was a councilwoman, Democrat. Mary Hogan was a councilwoman, Democrat. Valerie Bardinas was a councilwoman, independent. Now, you guys are here long enough. You need a majority to pass. I don't think the independent had a majority then. It was passed by the Democrats, signed by the Democrat mayor. Not a single person held a gun to his head. We have a police officer here, a detective, ask him. No weapons were in the building. 2006, Democrat majority again. I'm just referencing what was up here. And I'm not going to go into it because the point of the field is contamination. The point of the field is that the person who contaminated this field was then allowed to recontaminate it. That's the point of Veterans Field. The point is not how are our kids going to play Little League. The point is, are our kids' health being affected playing all those years on the field? All right, anyway, enough of that. I have a few questions. Looking over the agenda, and I'm sorry Greg Francis isn't here because, you know, I had a few questions I wanted to ask him.
His son's graduating.
Oh, no, it's okay. This is a civil service town. And by civil service, generally you have to go with their procedures. It's sort of like belonging to a union, except it's the state workers union. And so some of their procedures are generally when you get, if you have a job, a vacancy, you have to go through, follow the procedure with civil service. They call for a test, and then the rule of three kicks in. You pick out the, you know, has to be one from the rule of three unless there's a problem with either residency or background or, you know, other stuff. And then you move on to the next three. That's civil service. I noticed that you've done several hirings today, and I'm not objecting to the hirings. I just want to know how this town, in case I know somebody who I actually know several people who need a job, how do they find out? Because I looked on your website, I went back, I printed it. I haven't seen any, I didn't see any job posting. I have civil service, I printed it out. There was no job listing on civil service. I went through the papers, I backdated, didn't see any job vacancies. So I would like an answer to that. How is it, in case I know somebody who needs a job, how do they go about this? And when are you gonna call for a test for some of your hires recently? You have to call for a test, you know? And I don't want anybody to lose a job, but when they take the job, they really should know that it's provisional. And there's, you know, a lot of people would take that into consideration, you know, taking a position, a provisional position, because then they could be bumped out of it. They should really know that ahead of time. My other concern is that, you know, this is the year's agendas. I printed them out, work sessions, regular sessions. I don't see any discussion on, you know, or any listing here that you were ever going to discuss some of the purchases here, you know, the 10, you know, vehicles, the hirings. There's, you know, my concern is that a lot of business may not be done in open session. And you may not like it, but you're bound, sunshine law, to discuss matters in public. And I understand that you don't want to drag things out with lengthy, long discussions and have the meetings, you know, run smoothly. Unfortunately, I don't really think you have that privilege. You're supposed to talk about these things in public. So if you'd like to see the copy of the year's agenda, so you know I'm telling the truth, or if you'd like to see any of the meetings, they're online. Those you can go online, these, I'll give it to you, you can have them. Thank you, have a great day.
Anyone else wish to be heard? Seeing none, I'll close the open portion of the meeting. Just to answer some of the spending, I'm not questioning, but I know that in the past we've had budget discussions where I know that some of these items have come up. And from whether it be the DPW or the fire department, I can't pinpoint which meeting it is, but I believe over the past year, we have had discussions on everything we're moving forward with. I don't know if it was on there.
Mayor, I'd like to point out, just because, you know, it's a good question. We really have done a good job of holding a lot of this stuff off. I mean, by tradition, and I guess almost by